Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and Gerry Hamilton. This episode of the Saturday Conversation brought to you by our friends Tito's, America's original handmade vodka. Guys, let's talk a little Longhorn football. They take on the Florida Gators at around 2:30 today. Going to be a wet one, I think, in Gainesville. I'm here locally. Gerry and Rod, let's start with the Florida offense going up against the Texas defense. Florida and DJ Lagway have not been up to task so far this year. What are your thoughts, Gerry, on how they're going to fare against the Texas Longhorns later today?
Yeah, well, I think if they don't get Jaden Ball going, he's got to do better than 12 for 46 is what he did against Miami. They have to get him upwards 18, 20 carries for 75, 80 yards in this game. If not, I think it's going to put too much pressure on the offensive tackles at Florida and DJ Lagway for where they've been at. Unless Texas has coverage bust or just has a bad game defensively. I think that is the key. And, look, for the Florida offense themselves, they have to win enough on first down to give themselves a chance in this game. I mean, you listen to Billy Napier, one of the worst third down offenses in the country. We had a guy from the Gainesville Sun yesterday that said, Rod, I don't know if you've heard this stat. Florida is 1 for 27 in their last 27 attempts at 3rd and 7 or long this year. 1 for 27. I mean, that is worse than abysmal. So, wow. First down is huge for Florida. That's why first down run defense, I think, is huge for Texas. I think, Bobby, you said something on Coffee and Football Friday that really rang true with me that I think the Texas defense needs to make DJ Lagway do. Run the football because he's not healthy. There's a reason he's playing the way he is this year. And I don't think – I think he's trying to cover his shoulder. He doesn't want those shoulder issues to pop back up. I think Texas needs to make him a runner and get him to the ground and see if he gets up off the ground. But I think stopping Jaden Ball in the run game it's always number one, but it's especially number one considering how bad this team has been in situational football this year on third and mediums and longs.
What do you think, Rod?
Yeah, I think Gerry hit it on the head. Winning those early downs is going to be big. He's got 6 interceptions. That's, one of the highest numbers in college football. I think only 3 quarterbacks have more interceptions than he does. 5 of those have been on third and long situations. To Gerry's point, he's really struggling in predictable passing situations. And I don't know if you need to get exotic either. 5 of his interceptions have also come out of clean pockets. So he's just seeing ghosts and making bad decisions in those critical moments. So I expect Texas, as Gerry said, win on first down, win on those early downs, and you may get exotic with some of your looks, but I expect to see more simulated pressures than blitzes for him. Keep your numbers on the back end, just show him looks that he hasn't seen, and at least recent history would suggest that he's going to make a critical error. He's going to make a big mistake. They can't push the football downfield. His deep ball rate of 20-plus yard passes is last in college football, gentlemen, last. So to Gerry's point, maybe he is hurt because he's not even throwing the football downfield. It's only 1 of 7 on those types of passes. His best passes really have been screens, the screen game, and some of those flood concepts. The short to intermediate to the deep routes, and he don't really throw to the deep one. So really, you only got to cover the short to intermediate routes. So Texas, I think it's a bad matchup for Florida, in my opinion, because I think their passing game is a little predictable. I do think they have some strengths, some assets in the running game. That's why I think Texas can allocate their resources on early downs.
That's interesting to me because last year DJ Lagway threw the ball so well deep. And so I think it's got to be injury or people they've got the line on DJ Lagway now too and say this is what he reverts to when pressured. A couple other thoughts I have here before we do our score predictions, et cetera. Special teams today is going to be big, in my opinion. Obviously, it's nice and sunny here this morning, but I think it's going to be wet come game time. I think that if we look at it from my perspective, the kicking game, both punting and field goal kicking, if the winds do gust up to 25, 30 miles an hour, which the forecast is calling for, that could be an unthought about portion of the game that not many people are considering. And I think that whoever executes in special teams could have a real path to victory if both teams don't turn the ball over. I could see two punters going at it a little bit.
I want to take it a step further. We've seen Ryan Niblett unwilling to field short punts this year. If it's gusty, windy, his decision-making is really going to be put at a premium. It'll be interesting to see what Texas does with Niblett in this game. If it's a short punt or they just tell him to get away, like they did in Ohio State, get away from it, and we'll take the results of it. Because this is a grass field, and if it's a damp grass field, the ball will not be bounding and bouncing as much. So I'm guessing short punts, if there's anything short, they're going to tell Niblett that leave that one alone. And if it takes 5-6 yards bounce, we'll live with it. But I think his decision-making in the return game is going to be huge.
All right, Jerry, let's talk about score predictions. You give us yours and start and give us your overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, I got 23-17 Texas. Look, I think Texas is the better football team, obviously. I do think this is a road game in a tough environment. And it's hard for me to believe that everybody's talking about how bad the Florida offense has been, and it has. I find it hard to believe they're not going to show some sign of life at some point in this game. I mean, they were 0 for 13 on third downs against Miami. 0 for goose egg. And I'm not sure Texas can run the football like Miami. I think Miami's offensive line's really good, and that's where they made their hay. I think it's going to be a real battle. I think Mason Shipley is going to earn whatever his NIL money is off the transfer today. And I think 23-17 Texas, and I think it's a fourth quarter game.
What about you, Rod?
Yeah, I just have difficulty believing that Florida's offense is going to all of a sudden start clicking. Now, they did have a bye week, so that helps. But going up against this Texas defense, and Texas defense will be a little healthy, as healthy as they've been in the front in a while, too. I'm going 24-10 Texas. I have a hard time believing the Florida offense can really make a lot of plays, extend drives. If the weather is really bad, presents a sloppy field, and I throw all the predictions out the window. I don't really know how the offense are going to approach sloppy fields if they can't, obviously get any footing, and if it's muddy and all that kind of stuff. But I do think the Texas defense has a real advantage over this Florida offense. They were not being able to push the football downfield vertically, essentially shrinking your offense down to, between 5 to 10, a 10-yard passing game, I think is, that's a death sentence against this type of Texas defense. So I think it's a bad matchup. Who knows? They may decide to push it downfield. They may go with some double moves, try to get Texas DB slipping in the rain, that kind of thing. But I'll go 24-10, and I don't think Texas is going to run the football. I think they're going to break out 12 personnel on them if there's a muddy field, and try to just, run the rock and try to run it downhill and control the clock and control the game.
It's interesting. Florida's offensive line has not been as good this year as what they maybe thought it would be going into the year. Not in pass protection, not in the run game, etc. I think that plays into Texas's hand, especially on the outside guys with Ethan Burke and Colin Simmons and Colton Vasek and, et cetera, et cetera. That's a big piece for me. The other piece for me, I do think Texas should be better in the kicking game. Florida's kicker missed 3 field goals to start the year. Mason Shipley's been perfect. I'm going to go 20-14 Texas over the Gators. We'll see, though. The line on this game started off this week 6.5. It's down in the 5 range, been as low as 4.5. So without Cedric Baxter expected to play, without Manny Muhammad expected to play, we will see if the Longhorns still come out victorious. All right, before we move on to the SEC slate, we want to say thank you to our sponsor. That is Tito's Handmade Vodka. It's America's favorite vodka for a reason, known for great vodka, giving back to the community, and doing good for dogs, distilled and bottled by Fifth Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly. That's Tito's Handmade Vodka, America's favorite vodka. All right, guys, we've got a couple more things to go. SEC slate is relatively slight. There's only 5 games total, including the Longhorns versus Florida today. But the other games that I wanted to talk to, Kentucky goes to Georgia. That was a tight one last year in Lexington. I don't think it's going to be so tight this year. Vandy goes to Bama. Vandy upset Bama in this game last year, kind of startled the college football world. And then Mississippi State late tonight goes to A&M, 6:30 start on the SEC network. Let's start with Vandy, Alabama, if y'all don't mind, and work our way down to Mississippi State A&M. Starting with Vandy, Bama. Bama, a 10.5-point favorite, but Vanderbilt has one of the nation's best offenses.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama just is this going to be a bully ball type game for Bama where they're just going to say, our dudes can play defense straight up enough to beat Vanderbilt, and Diego Pavia is finally going to get his little comeuppance now that Johnny Football apparently is his mentor. He's going to be on the sideline for Vanderbilt in this game. What are y'all's thoughts, Rod? I'll start with you, buddy.
Didn't Pavia say that if basically they do what they got to do, it should be close? Didn't he throw it out there earlier?
He went Thomas Castellanos part 2 on Alabama.
Yeah.
I will say right now he is backed it up. He's completing 75% of his passes at this point. If you look at total QBR, he's third nationally in total QBR. He's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, averaging nearly 7 yards per non-sack carry out there too. He's making a lot of plays, and now he's not as chaotic in a rat as he was last year, right? So he's got fewer negative plays, fewer mistakes, and now his game is a lot more refined. So he could actually pull off another upset here. They actually are really good right now. If you look at Cedric Alexander and I believe Young is his name, the other running back. They are combined averaging 6.9 yards per carry. So those guys can run. But on the other side, Ty Simpson is playing some of the best football that of any quarterback in the country right now. Against Georgia, he was only under pressure 5, I believe, of his 40 dropbacks. That is. Wow. So if they can protect him like that, Bama's going to win this game. But I will say that Vanderbilt's defense is underrated, man. They're top 20 if you look at it in PFF coverage grade and PFF pass rush grade. That is not something I expected this year. I'm going to go with Bama because I just have a hard time believing that amount of talent, even though I love Vanderbilt and what they're doing, that Vanderbilt and a really good coach, by the way. I still like Kevin DeBoer, even though obviously he's had some down moments there so far at Alabama. I still think he's one of the best coaches out there. When they're focused, and they're going to be focused now, Vandy ain't going to catch them by surprise this time. I'm going to go with Bama to win this one, but I would not be surprised at all if I'm eating crow after this. It probably makes me eat some crow too, because he makes a lot of people do it.
Are you going Vanderbilt plus? Are you going to Alabama plus 10.5?
No. I'll go with Bama to win it, but I'll take Vandy to keep it within a number. Oh hell yeah, that's easy money right there. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Gerry?
Yeah, I'm taking Bama to cover. I do. I like Bama. I don't think. And I know what the stats are saying, but I don't believe in Vandy defensively. I think this stuff's going to start to catch up with them. Okay. Just look at who they've played.
Do you believe in them offensively?
I do. I believe in Pavia. And I think Cedric Alexander's a really good running back, and I think Stowers is tremendous at tight end as a pass catcher. I wonder offensive line-wise, now that they're getting into the meat of it, where they're going to be playing better defensive talent than they have all season, what that's going to look like for them the rest of the way. But I think if Diego Pavia gets Vanderbilt to 8-4 or 9-3 this year, but 8-4, I think that's underrated what he's done for this program.
Oh, I think that's National Coach of the Year scenario, right? The one thing I would say as it relates to these guys in Vandy, Bama, I think that Bama's going to cover. I want to say that. I think Bama's going to cover. And Gerry hit on why I believe that. Vandy has not played a defense that can cause negative plays. Yeah. Alabama can put you behind the chains. Mm-hmm. Vanderbilt all season long has played in front of the chains. So I think I'm going to go with Gerry and go with Vandy or with Bama covering. So Rod, you're on the short end of the stick there. But
I'm a believer in Pavia then.
Fair
hey,
enough.
look, Rod, that's a good place to be. Theo Vaughn's gets a date with his mom because they beat South Carolina, and now Johnny Manziel's his mentor.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know what's left in Pavia's life, but there's got to be something.
All right, let's go to Kentucky, Georgia. Georgia coming off that home loss to Alabama, stays at home in Athens and plays Kentucky. The Bulldogs are 20-point favorites. Kentucky, Mark Stoops, what do is it time for him to move on in Lexington? Is that kind of what we all think?
Well, if I'm Mark Stoops, I go to their AD and say, I'm good with 4 and 8. I'll just keep taking the money. You can give more NIL money to basketball if I'm Mark Stoops. But they don't have the talent he had when he was a threat to people. They do not have that level of talent anymore. They don't have the NFL quarterbacks that they once had, right? And the really good running backs. Seth McGowan is their leading rusher. The guy that got in trouble was out of Mesquite. Petit got in trouble at Oklahoma and then transferred back. They just don't have the talent to run with Georgia. I mean, just that's pure and simple. And I don't know how if Georgia will emotionally be up for this game. So it may be a little closer than people think, but it's a straight up talent mismatch in this game. So I like Georgia to cover this game. I know it's a kind of a big number, 19.5, but I just don't think Kentucky's very talented, guys.
All right, let's go to that. I'm not worried about covering this game. Look, either Georgia shows up or Georgia doesn't show up. Either way, I think Georgia wins. But I will say this: if Georgia shows up, I think they blow the doors off of that 20 points. Rod, I want to go to you. Last game I want to really talk about in the SEC is Mississippi State going to A&M. Yeah. This is going to be the 6:30 game in Kyle Field on the SEC network. Aggies favored by 15.5.
That's a lot.
Mississippi State just took Tennessee to overtime last week. Are people selling Mississippi State short and overranking the Aggies in this game? I'm just going to say this. I picked Mississippi State to cover, and I think the game's going to be tighter maybe than what they think. I mean, I'm not a huge – I know they shut out Auburn basically, but everybody shuts out Auburn. I'm going to take Mississippi State, not necessarily to win, but to definitely cover the 15.5. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Aggies right now, their offense looks like it's finding its groove, right? They focused on the passing game early on when they first started the season. They had like a 60% pass rate to start the season. Then last week, they flipped the script, basically was 60% run rate last week versus Auburn, and ran the ball really well. Over 5.5 yards per rush, ran for over 240 yards, 100 yards, I think 100 plus yards after contact. So now if you can add, Concepcion out there and Craver, and them throwing the ball really well with the running game, now the offense looks like they can beat you in a number of different ways. And I'm not sure if Mississippi State's got the dogs in the front seven to stop the Aggies if they decide they just want to run the rock. They've allowed over 5 yards per carry to a Power 4 opponent so far this year. Even though they're playing really well, their strength is in the back end with the secondary. I think their secondary actually probably matches up better with A&M than their front seven. So I think that's the problem for them ultimately. And so I'll take the Aggies to win it. But I'm with you. I'll take Mississippi State to keep it within that number, man. They've been playing well enough to keep it within a number. And the Aggies are not consistent on defense. They're good, but they have some lapses every now and then. And their two running backs, Booth and both well, for Mississippi State they've been working the edges and doing a good job getting explosive plays on the perimeter, on the outside.
What about you, Jerry?
Yeah, I don't know if A&M's going to cover, but this is a massive game for A&M this season. After that Notre Dame game and then after beating Auburn, this is a massive game for them. And I do think confidence matters, and I think they have a lot of it. But if they beat improved Mississippi State, then they have Florida at home, then they go to Arkansas, they're going to be 7-0 going to LSU. And then they have LSU and Missouri, and all they have to do is win one of those two road games. Then you have South Carolina and Stanford at home, and you're 10-1 going to Austin, and they're in the playoffs. So as long as this Mississippi State's this is a huge game for them. If they put those 3 wins in a row together, they're going to be in the playoff this year. That's where this thing's headed for Mike Elko. And I think they have confidence, and I do think I think it's a good matchup for them, and I do think they'll win the game despite the running back for Mississippi State is as good as anybody in the SEC.
Yeah, Flood Bothwell is unbelievable. I watched him against Tennessee last week. All right, before we get to the national game, the Miami-Florida State game is going to be interesting, in my opinion. I want to say thanks again to Tito's Handmade Vodka. It's America's favorite vodka for a reason, known for great vodka, giving back to the community, and doing good for dogs. Distilled and bottled by Fifth Generation Inc., Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly. Again, that's Tito's Handmade Vodka, America's favorite vodka, for a reason. We appreciate them sponsoring Saturday Conversation here at On Texas Football and other aspects of our game day programming. Just so you know, other programs we have set up for later today. We have the Texas Tailgate. I'll be at the tailgate later today, later this morning, actually. Just so you know, if you're in Gainesville, make sure you stop by the tailgate. It is going to be one of a kind. It's going to be the largest Texas tailgate on campus at Florida, no doubt about it. We already had 250 some odd tickets sold pre-game, so make sure you stop by, please, and come visit us. That'll be brought to you by Hargrove Roofing. Then the watch with us at 2:30. Gerry, you and Rod will be part of that with Aaron Hogan. Rod, you and I talk post-game live. Yingling Flight will be handling that for us later today as well. All right, guys, let's stay here. The game of the day probably is Miami, Florida State. Miami goes to Tallahassee, by the way, but they are 4.5-point favorites. Florida State licking its wounds after going to Virginia and losing to Virginia last week in OT. What are we thinking right now? I mean, Miami gets this one. Miami's kind of clear sailing. If Florida State loses it, you can ixnay the Seminoles say in the as it relates to the college football playoff. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, again, weather could be a factor in this game too. We got to see, right? I mean, if that weather's anything close to what it looks like it may be in Gainesville later today, then that could affect things. That could actually hurt Miami a little bit. But I like Miami's offensive line, guys. And their ability to run the football, and that's helping cut down Carson Beck's turnovers, because I still think he's a turnover machine if he's got too much pressure on him. But I like Miami's offensive line. Florida State is going to struggle to stop the run, I think, in this game, and that's going to be the difference. Now, if it's rainy, maybe Castellanos gets slippery and he's hard to tackle for Miami. But the problem for Castellanos, he hasn't played defensive pass rush guys and the guys that are going to close on him as fast as Miami is.
I got to be honest. They beat Alabama in the rain. Rod, what are your thoughts?
I like Miami. I'm with Gerry. I've been so impressed with him in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. That Florida State run game though it's lethal with Castellano, especially in the mix with Gus Malzahn. It's like it's probably top 5, top 10 run game in the country. But you looking at that, kind of the antidote for that with that defensive line for Miami. So I'll take Miami, and I think Miami is they may just have the best O-line, best D-line combination in college football. That's going to win you a lot of games. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
We'll see if Miami's really back.
Yeah.
Today. I think that'll be it. That's the 6:30 game on ABC, by the way. The 6:30 game the 6 o'clock game that follows Texas on ESPN, by the way, is the Battle of Unbeatens in the Big 12. Texas Tech goes to Houston. The Red Raiders, 11.5-point favorites over the Cougars. That's one I wanted to make sure I mentioned. And before we let y'all go, one other game, the only other game in the SEC this week, Kent State, the Golden Flashes, go to Oklahoma and Norman. Listen to this. Without John Mateer, OU is 46.5-point favorites. Are they going to score 46.5 points without John Mateer?
Against Kent State, yes. I got to cover.
You got to cover. What about Rod?
I think maybe a nod to Ben Arbuckle. I mean, Ben Arbuckle is trying to ascend to be one of the best offensive minds in college football. He's got a nice resume so far. If he can end up, doing something without John Mateer with that Oklahoma offense, that would be impressive. So maybe it's
by the way, Kent State has already lost to Texas Tech 62-14 and Florida State 66-10 this year.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to go no. I'm going to say they don't cover. I mean, just.
And by the way, we're missing one key game.
What's that?
You want to know how bad the seasons have gone when Clemson at North Carolina gets no mention anywhere right now?
Damn,
yeah.
And
versus Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson gets no run at all. That's when seasons have gone bad.
That's a good thing, in my opinion, for both
It
of those
is.
programs. All right.
It's on Bravo. They're going to put it on Bravo after Real College Orange County. First
Jerry will
college
be watching
football
if it's
game ever on Bravo.
You'll be watching if it's
I'll
on
be
Bravo,
watching.
that's for sure. If it's
I'll
on a
have a full
Monday night or
breakdown.
Tuesday night. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks to Rod Babers and Gerry Hamilton, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchison. And also thank you to our friends over at Tito's, America's original handmade vodka. Thank you all so much. All right, we'll be back here in a couple of hours with the tailgate. Make sure you guys join us in for Rod, Gerry, and Matt. I'm Bobby Burton. Hook 'em horns. Let's go, Texas.